Was the moon landing faked? Have we been to Mars? Has NASA been silencing astronauts? Haunted Tyler joins me as we weigh in on these questions and more on this week's What's Out There. Hey guys, Grim Webster here, and welcome to episode 4 of What's Out There. On this episode, Haunted Tyler and I take on NASA cover-ups. Now, before we get started, I'd just like to take a minute to thank everybody for continuing to listen to the podcast. Now, if you noticed, 2 weeks ago there should have been an episode and there wasn't. The reason for that being that I was out of town. I took the family on vacation to Bardstown, Kentucky. Now, aside from doing all the vacation stuff that you do when you go on vacation, we actually did a little bit of ghost hunting. We went to some historic sites, took some pictures, and actually caught quite a few orbs on film. Now, there was also some other stuff that happened that I wish I'd got on film, and I didn't. Last week I released a YouTube video that was just for YouTube, and if you want to go there, it has all the pictures I took that have orbs, and I have a little narrative over them to tell you what's happening in the picture, what we were doing, what we were talking about, and I even give you a story. That being said, settle in as Haunted Tyler and I take on NASA cover-ups. Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, you?
So far so good. How was your Halloween?
Pretty good. I had to work that night, but, other than that, it was alright.
Let's go ahead and jump right in. I wanted to start with the theory that the moon landing was faked. According to some of the numbers I found, like 20% of Americans believe that it was faked. There's video, if you watch the video where they planted the flag on the moon, you can see the flag kind of waving. There's pictures where it shows shadows from rocks and things going in different directions, which would suggest more than one light source. What's your take on that?
I think, it's really hard to tell because we were in that whole space race back then, but I remember watching on, I think it was a Destination Truth a while ago. They had some pretty good evidence for and against. There was actually one piece of evidence where it looked like there was a string connected to one of the guy's backs that pulled him back up when he fell. It was very unnatural looking, I thought.
Yeah, I found some stuff where they were talking about because one of the questions is, if it was faked and it was filmed in a studio like they say, then how are they doing those moon jumps? And they said that there was, obviously like cables and stuff to hoist them up like they do in the movies. Right. It seems that pretty much everything that anybody can come up with, somebody's got an answer for. Like one of the big ones was, if you watch the footage, you'll notice there's no stars in the sky.
Right.
And there's, I think NASA came out at one point in time and said that it was just the video footage, or the video was so bad that it just kind of blanked everything out. Or another one was, the sun was up and the sun is way brighter and way closer, so it kind of just blanked out everything and all you saw was a black sky.
Yeah.
But, it seems just like no matter what somebody says, like NASA has an answer. But on the other hand, it seems that their answer has changed a couple times on some things, and some of them were just kind of dumb.
Yeah. Well, the other thing you gotta look at is that it is a 1960s camera on the moon.
Right.
So there's gonna be some, leeway as far as what it can pick up and what it can't pick up.
Yeah, there was also rumors of on the Apollo 14 mission where there was a creature that kind of was supposed to have run through the footage, and I tried to find video of that, but I couldn't quite find it, and that would lend to the that it was filmed on like a sound stage or something, and somebody's dog ran through the shot or something, but it's supposed to be back off in the distance and you can't really see it, but I couldn't find it. Have you ever seen that one?
No, I looked for it all over after you told me about it. Yeah, but that definitely led to the theory that all the Apollo missions were actually filmed somewhere in the desert or on a soundstage somewhere.
I think I would probably like to believe more that, there was some sort of life on the moon and they just didn't tell us about it. And that kind of would fit in with all the other government conspiracies and cover-ups and stuff like that. I think I just like that one better.
Yeah, but a little just off the wall fact here about the Apollo 14 mission is that Stuart Roosa, who was in the basically like the base for Apollo 14 when they went down and went onto the moon, he was still in orbit around it. He had 500 seeds from trees out there in the shuttle with him, and when he came back, they planted them all, and actually a lot of them sprouted up, and they're called moon trees. If anybody ever looks those up, they're a lot of them are still alive today.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I think everybody's pretty much seen the video of them planting the flag on the moon. Have you seen it wave when they kind of put it down in there?
Yeah, I think I saw that. Like I was mentioning earlier on that at Destination Truth. And I mean, obviously, it would be logical for there to be no wind.
At the same time, though, it's like they weren't exactly being gentle with it. And it's kind of like they stuck it down in there and it just kind of flapped. But, not actually being on the moon, I myself don't know exactly how something like that would react. But, they weren't exactly being gentle with it. So I can kind of see how it would move. But at the same time, there's at one point in time, there's kind of like this ripple effect going through it when they, just kind of bump it. And I don't know, it seems like it shouldn't do that.
Yeah. But at the same time, if they bumped it, there's no real air, wind resistance or whatever there in space.
Right.
So any slight movement would cause it to go. And there's no friction either. You could say, especially up in the air, or lack there of air, but so any kind of movement would kind of make it go.
Right. I think even with all the evidence for and against the moon landing being faked, I think I still want to believe that it was real and that we've actually been there.
I'd agree with that. That's a pretty big thing to fake and to fool the entire American population into it.
Right. Ruins on the moon. Have you seen the pictures of that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little bit different there.
You see these pictures of the moon, and if you look carefully at them, you can see there's a lot of different pictures, not just the moon, but actually of Mars too.
Yeah.
Where you can see parts of the picture have almost been scrubbed clean.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of talk for years that, NASA's trying to cover stuff up, and, they had people in the 60s and 70s sitting in these tiny little rooms with little vials of acid, doctoring the negatives of these pictures. What's your take on that?
Just to give a little background in case any of the people here don't know where they are, they're supposed to be these really big towering structures that are like in a group over a mile long and supposedly photographed by Apollo astronauts, but rumor goes that they've been withheld for over 30 years by a NASA employee. As far as things go, as far as structures on the moon, especially like that, I'm leaning more towards the no side on that, because there's not any kind of way to sustain at least carbon-based life on the moon. There's no water, there's no food, there's no oxygen, assuming that something that lived up there, they could have the intelligence to build something like this, lived off oxygen.
I don't know if I sent you the link to this or not, but there's a page about halfway down this page, and I'm going to end up probably linking it on the blog site too, but there's a video of somebody supposedly exploring one of these structures. I think it was from somebody recorded it off of a Greek TV show. Have you seen that video?
No, I didn't get that one.
It's pretty interesting, but it's very grainy. It's silent. Somebody actually took like a camcorder and recorded their TV screen, so it's kind of hard to get anything on it. But I'll put up a link, and if you want to go back and check that out sometime, there's still shots on the page as well. But I watched the whole video. It's about 4.5 minutes long. On one hand, I want to say that's awesome, but on the other hand, I want to say that's pretty good special effects.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'd say too. I mean, stuff like that is supposedly non-man-made. I suppose if you believe in extraterrestrial life, which I mean, I do believe that there's a possibility out there, but supposing that they're intelligent enough to get here and want to observe us, that'd be pretty much the only way I could see that really
Right.
be. That was some kind of observation post or something.
And even in the video, though, I mean, if it is extraterrestrial life, unless they were very similar to us, I don't see how this structure could be, because it's very much like something that humans would build. It's same architecture with the doorways and the pillars for support and whatnot. I would think if they have the technology to come all the way here, they probably have a better system for putting up a building.
Yeah.
But just to watch the video, though, it's kind of entertaining if you can sit through 4 minutes of silent black and white footage. It's still pretty neat.
Yeah. Going with the moon, did you want to discuss the hollow moon theory?
Yes, actually I did. The thing about the hollow moon theory, I always thought it was kind of like, have you ever heard of the hollow earth theory?
Yeah.
Where, there's, the earth is supposed to be hollow, and I think there was supposed to be like an entrance somewhere in Antarctica or something like that, where you go inside the earth and there's a whole other ecosystem in there and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the thing about the moon, or what a lot of people are saying, is that it's not like there's like another, like an ecosystem or anything in there. It's just like the moon is like a false structure and not natural. And I think one of the images I found compared the topography of the Earth and the moon, and the Earth has like all these mountain ranges and huge crevices where the oceans are, and it's very irregular, and the moon really it's almost uniform, and the only difference is there's craters from where things have smashed into it, but it's like they only go down so far and then they stop.
Right.
There's no big differences there. What's your take on that?
Well, as far as the difference in topography, the theory with the moon is that, well, there's two real theories about it. It's either that there was a space rock that kind of got caught on our orbit, or that a big chunk of Earth broke off at some point during its development and, floated off into space and started going around. So that, something that's smaller like that, I mean, if you look at our moon versus the moons of Jupiter and Saturn and all that, they're all pretty much the same as far as topography. They're just basically big rocks out in space.
Right.
They're not going to have those huge, oceans and all that. And as far as craters and all that, I figured that you can only have so much velocity coming towards it at a certain point. And the craters there, to me, kind of makes it seem like it can't be hollow, because it's, the moon's constantly being bombarded by stuff because there's no atmosphere to burn up any of the stuff that's going to hit it. So, I mean, you'd think that if it was constantly being hit, day in and day out by stuff, that something would cave in eventually.
Did you hear about it? It was in the Apollo mission in '69 when they released the lunar module after they returned to the orbiter. When the module smacked into the moon, it caused a reverberation that their equipment picked up, like a giant bell, and it just kind of reverberated for over an hour. Have you heard that one?
No, I've never heard of
that. I think that's one of the bigger arguments for a hollow moon, is when it smacked in there, it caused this seismic reverberation that their equipment picked up, and just like a big ringing for over an hour. Yeah.
I think the thing that, to me, discredits a hollow moon over anything else is that Alex Collier, and if any of your listeners or you don't know who Alex Collier is, he's a huge proponent of the reptilian theory.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, your listeners don't know, the reptilians are supposed to be this race of aliens that have come to Earth to repopulate and essentially take over, the Earth. And presidents are, there's all kinds of political leaders are said to be reptilians.
Right.
And basically everybody except for some, theorists out there agree that that's not true. But I mean, always a possibility, but I don't really see that.
Right. I know the first time I heard about the reptilian theory, it was David Icke. I think he's like the biggest one out there pushing the reptilians.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've listened to a lot of his arguments and I've watched a lot of his videos and stuff, and I really don't know if I believe that or not. It just I'm predisposed to believe or want to believe a lot of things, but I think that's the one I have the hardest time even entertaining.
Yeah. I first heard about the reptilians from my crazy Uncle Paul, and I mean, he's a conspiracy theorist like the extreme. Like,
oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of this website I used to go on. It was God something, I can't remember, but it was just basically all of these conspiracy theories just piled onto one another, and just people adding on to them and adding on to them, and here's my theory and here's his theory and all that. And he believed a lot of it. Like, he believed in Nibiru that was supposed to come through back in like 2010.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I had to exercise some self-restraint there and not call him up and be like, "Hey, Paul, where is it at?" But following that, I actually read something on Want to Believe the other day about the Ison, I think is what it's called, comet that's supposed to pass through.
Yeah.
Later on this year, and we're actually supposed to go through its tail, through the dust that it's letting off, which I thought was pretty cool that it lets off that amount of dust, but it's supposed to have some pretty cool effects when we pass through that. So it's supposed to be January 14th, if I remember right.
What's so special about Ison is it's the first time that it's ever come into our solar system, I think is why everybody's so excited.
Yeah.
And actually this month, I want to say toward somewhere around Thanksgiving is when it's supposed to come around the sun. Yeah. And they're hoping that it's going to be bright enough to see from Earth with the naked eye, and they're hoping that it's going to be like this big show, but since it's never come through our solar system before, they don't actually know. But since it's from outside of our solar system, it's still got this like outer space ice and stuff on it. So when it circles the sun, it's supposed to put off this big light and everything. But at the same time, it could just burn up and dissipate. So it's been a big talk for better part of the year so far. And I know I think you can actually see it with a telescope now, like early in the morning, or like just when the sun goes down, or just before it's about to come up. You're supposed to be able to see it with a telescope now.
Yeah, I think it's out towards Jupiter or something like that right now. Or that's when it was last photographed or something like that.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on that because, it's basically a first ever for this one. So anybody who gets to see it this time around, if it does make another pass around, this is like the first time. So it's kind of a historic thing, at least for this comet.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary thing if you think about it. That's something that big and moving that fast that we can actually see it from the ground, on Earth. That's relatively close to us. I mean, that's, just if you think about it, for a couple days early or late, there's a possibility that it could run into us.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, it's like, I posted a story not too long ago where we just got missed by an asteroid. And yeah. It turns out that it wasn't the first time that this asteroid has missed us. And at one point in time, it was only 8 meters away from us. Huh. But this year was the first time that anybody ever noticed it. And that's frightening. Yeah. On one hand, it's good that we're getting that our technology is moving forward enough for us to see these things coming. But, on the other hand, you're seeing like all these new threats that you didn't know of before, and it's almost like you felt safer when you didn't know they were there.
Yeah.
The Nazi base on the moon. Have you heard that one?
I actually, the first time I heard about it was when you told me, or when you sent me a message about it.
I've heard about it for quite a few years now. Supposedly, during World War II, the Nazis were... one of the theories goes that they had captured a UFO and they were trying to reverse engineer it.
Right.
And you can actually see that there were Nazi tests with UFO-type vehicles, but they don't look like they were like reverse engineered or anything. It was just kind of like their idea of what it should be, and they would hover a little bit and stuff like that. But the theory is that somehow they actually made it to the moon during World War II and somehow set up a base there, colonized the moon, and it was supposed to be their like a command center. And one of the theories is that Hitler even faked his death and went to the moon base and lived out his life there.
Right.
And I tried to find some details and some links for it, but I think a year or so ago they made this movie called Iron Sky, and it was based on that theory. And now pretty much anything you look up, at least through Google, about a Nazi moon base, it's pretty much just publicity for Iron Sky. Yeah. So I really couldn't find anything for it, but I kind of want to see Iron Sky now, so their advertising is working.
Yeah, I hate it when movies do that, though. Real quick on the Nazi base, though. I'd like to think that, I mean, out of all of these, that's the one I would say would probably be most likely to happen. Yeah, the website I looked at said that other, astronauts and cosmonauts from other countries have even, been there since it was built after World War II. But as far as movies go and their viral marketing, I don't really agree with that because that really mixes up truth and, some solid ideas on it in what they put out. For example, The Fourth Kind, when that came out.
Oh yeah, that was supposed to be based on a true story, and I guess they supposedly used real interview recordings and stuff like that, but
yeah, which was actually pretty much all a lie.
Right.
If you actually look at it, I think in the past 30 years, something like 5 people have disappeared out of that area, and it's usually during the harshest parts of winter or when they've been drunk. So there's kind of that, but the big point in all that is that they used some Alaskan newspapers and left real stories in there, but would put in stories to support their movie.
Oh yeah. Anytime a movie studio gets a hold of something real, they always change it just to make it, I guess, more entertaining or whatever. But I guess real life just isn't entertaining enough, or not entertaining enough to draw in a crowd to watch a movie for $10 a hit.
Yeah. Well, Universal actually got a huge lawsuit from that newspaper over it because they didn't ask permission to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, but they did settle. So
I think the big thing about the Nazi moon base for me is if they had the technology to make it to the moon and set up a base there, how did they lose the war?
Right.
I think if they would have had that technology, World War II would have gone in a completely different direction. Unless they squandered all their resources to do this whole moon thing and didn't have enough left to fight an effective war.
Right. That's what I was thinking. During that is that, they put all their resources into building. I mean, this is 1944. They put all their resources into pushing up into the moon and getting there. I mean, and then they don't have enough money to keep resources going to their troops on the eastern and western fronts. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean,
right.
You got, Britain, U.S., Canada, all pushing in on Normandy and, pushing through and fighting constantly at it while if they were spending all their resources and money on building something to get to the moon, I don't see how they'd have a whole bunch left over to supply ammunition and weapons and all that. How about the face and pyramids on Mars?
Oh yeah. I remember the first time that they saw that face on Mars. It was a huge thing. I want to say that was about the same period in life where I discovered the alien autopsy video.
Right.
And I remember the Fox channel. I was living by Toledo at the time. They were pushing it really hard. The alien autopsy video. I want to say they had the guy from X-Files hosting the show or whatever.
Yeah,
X-Files was pretty big at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when that first came out, and I was like, "Oh, definitive proof."
Yeah, when I was younger, I was real big into aliens and life in space, and I remember looking at that and thinking it was real cool, and looking at the autopsy of the Greys and all that. But as I got older, I kind of drifted out of that, and I don't remember a whole lot about it anymore. But I remember the face in the pyramids being a very huge thing.
Oh yeah.
Especially as I was reading about it later and all kinds of theories. To me personally, as I'm older now, it looks to me like it's probably just a series of hills, and that's just the way the lighting's hitting it. Especially since NASA, which I mean it's a government agency, so take this out how you will, released another photo of that same area at a different angle, and it looked completely different.
Right. And I've actually heard people though talk about they've compared the second pictures that were released with like the scrubbing out of things on the moon. A lot of people say that it looks altered to them.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I think it was I think one of the most damaging things that NASA did with that, even if it's not anything, one of the most damaging things they did about it was, it came out and everybody, got excited, and then NASA made it a joke.
Right.
They almost came out and joked about it afterwards. And I think, with something like that, maybe they should have played up on people's curiosity or their excitement or whatever. Because, I mean, look at them now. NASA's funding gets cut a little more every year, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think if there was more public outcry and more public excitement about a space program, that wouldn't be so. And I think that, if NASA just did a little bit more, just a little more PR, really,
Right.
they might not have the funding issues they do have. I've heard people say that they've got high res pictures from like the European space program.
Yeah.
And where you can actually, it looks like the face is a constructed structure, I guess. You can see like support beams and it looks like metal panels and stuff like that. But the images that NASA released are completely different, I guess. They say that like the European space companies and stuff like that, they don't hide as much.
Right.
I guess is what they're saying. What do you think about that? Have you seen any of those pictures?
No, I haven't. But I mean, if there were life anywhere else in this solar system, Mars, I think, would be the most friendly towards it, because they're in a similar region as ours as far as space goes. I mean, they do experience higher temperature days, lower temperature nights. And it's actually, if I remember, really cold almost all the time at night. I think we found what looks like dry riverbeds. So I mean, I think at one point there could have possibly been life on Mars. If it was anywhere, I mean, I'd say that it's more likely to be there. Of course, it would have evolved different than us. It looked different than us and all that. But
have you heard there was a news story not too long ago where it shows that it basically said that life on Earth could have been spawned by or could have been seeded by Mars. Basically, um, one of the minerals on Mars that was needed, one of the minerals that was needed for life on Earth was actually very scarce on Earth when life formed, and that they think it may have come actually from Mars, like a chunk of Mars floating away or whatever and smashing into Earth. Have you heard that one?
No, that's a pretty good theory though. I've actually never heard of that at all.
I guess they were testing little rocks that they brought back from Mars, or soil samples or something like that, and they realized that Mars has like I think it's like 10 times more of this element than Earth did, and so they kind of think that maybe life on Earth was seeded from something from Mars crashing into Earth.
So I mean, I guess we could all be Martians then.
Right? Yeah, that's kind of how I thought about it. You know, what if we're all technically Martians and we just kind of grew up on Earth?
Yeah.
Have you heard the theory that that however long ago Mars was an Earth-like planet, and that maybe there was a civilization there, and they knew that they were gonna die, or they knew the planet was gonna end up desolate, so they came to Earth instead?
No, I mean, I've always heard of like, other alien races coming to Earth, and civilizations on Mars. So I mean, as I was younger, I always made that jump that they could have come over from Mars. But I never heard that one specifically where they knew it was gonna end. But I mean, even with the technology that we have right now, if they had that amount and were able to come over, I mean, that would work. But I mean, at the same time, if you look back in history, I mean, it was just 1969 when we were able to get to the moon the first time.
Right. Well, there's also like, well, you've heard of Atlantis, right?
Yeah.
And the civilization there was supposed to be really highly advanced, and at some point in time they caused their own downfall. And it's almost like, I've heard it described like, you get so advanced and then you wipe yourself out and basically start over from scratch.
Right.
And I kind of think of it like that, maybe they were so advanced and maybe somehow it was even their fault, or, and so they were able to come to Earth, but they had to like start all over. It wasn't the scientist that escaped, it was like the average Joe, and he doesn't know anything about whatever they had.
Yeah.
I mean, like if something were to happen and we were all had to like jump to a different planet or whatever, I mean, they would try to get like the smart people on there, but I think a lot of it would just be like regular people who have no idea on how to do any of the awesome things that we can do.
Yeah.
I think most of the people, they would just be more concerned with people who can farm and make sure there's food.
Yeah, that's assuming that there was a landscape that.
Well, yeah.
That we could farm.
That's one of those. That's one of the theories about Mars. There are so many theories about Mars, though. It's almost, you almost don't know which way to go, or where to turn with Mars, because everybody's got a theory.
The great thing about Mars is that it's right in our backyard.
Yeah. I think that's one of the major appeals, I think, is that, it's so close and yet it's kind of so far away.
Right.
Have you heard about the Jump Room program?
Actually, that was when I was having a little bit of trouble finding any information on.
I actually did a story on a guy who claims to have been in the Jump Room program. And I first heard the guy on Coast to Coast AM. I was listening to him. He was on there, and he explained it pretty well. Basically, what it was is the government had a secret program, like they've had teleportation technology since the 70s, is what he said. And they had a secret program where people would teleport from Earth to Mars. And that actually on Mars, there's two races of beings actually still living there. There's one that's very much like Earth, almost like a breakaway civilization, and then there's one that's sort of similar to humans, but definitely different.
Right.
And he was a little shady on what he actually did there. He didn't really come out and say, but the gist of it was that the government's been teleporting people to Mars for years to do whatever, and he's actually said that he was in the same group as Barack Obama back then, and that Obama has gone to Mars a few times as well. I mean, obviously, first glance it sounds crazy, but it's one of those things that I would like to be true, I think.
Yeah, I don't think Barack Obama was ever in any kind of military service.
Right. Well, I don't want to get too political, but I remember when he was first running for president, and there was this big thing, and nobody could seem to find any record of his college transcripts or anything like that. It seemed to be hard to figure out exactly what he did at certain points of time. And I guess, if I was inclined to believe in the jump room program, I could say, well, they were trying to cover up his involvement in going to Mars and stuff like that. But I don't think it's anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's just some lapses in records. If he said something like John McCain or something like that, that'd be a little bit more believable to me. Because or somebody that's had some kind of military service, especially like Air Force military service.
Right, yeah.
Or like George Bush. I could see that.
Yeah, somebody that's had some any military training, really.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure they wouldn't just pick lawyers up off the street and say, "Hey,
right,
you want to join this top secret government program?"
Or maybe he was involved and that's been covered up, and it was his involvement there that got him into politics and eventually into president.
Yeah, which I saw that you said something about Project Camelot, which that makes a whole lot more sense now that I know now that I have some context.
Right.
But that's just basically where it was just a social science experiment where they would basically try to put two groups of people against each other and see what happened, pretty much.
Right.
Make a social breakdown, pretty much. The U.S., I believe, if they did that here on Earth, would really take advantage of that and move into some of these poor countries and exploit the resources there. I guess, assuming that there are those two races on Mars, there'd have to be some kind of resource up there.
Right.
I can assume, I could see where the government would benefit from having those resources.
He never actually said exactly what he was doing there, and he almost alluded to the possibility that he may have actually when they teleported that it may have also done something like time travel, and he couldn't confirm exactly what time period he was actually there. And the same guy actually claims that when he was a child, he was part of another government program where they actually sent him time traveling, him and a group of kids and a group of adults, and they would time travel to different places. He claims to have been at the Ford Theater when Lincoln was assassinated. He claims to have been there like 2 or 3 times on the same night. And there's a picture where he was supposedly in Gettysburg during the Gettysburg Address, and he was dressed as a bugle boy. And I actually have that up on the blog page. I did a whole thing on this one guy. His name's Andrew Basiago, and he plans on running for president in 2016. So if he decides to throw his hat in, I'm gonna give that significant coverage just because. While we're on the subject, kind of getting back on the subject of Mars, have you seen the pictures that from the Curiosity rover that it kind of looks like it may have found body parts or metallic? It almost looks like a metallic arm. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, definitely looks like some kind of metallic cylinder or arm or something that's coming out of it's coming out of the rock. It looks almost like, say if a car crashed somewhere and it was there for, say in the desert for, say 100 years, there'd be calcium buildup and rock buildup around it from all the sand.
Right.
I figure we'd find something pretty similar to that. I mean, it looked different, obviously, because it's a car, but or some piece of machinery that looked like that. I mean, it definitely looks like machinery to me.
I think kind of in one of the in the close-up pictures, it almost looks like it might just be a shiny rock. I mean, you know how like sometimes some types of rock, just kind of appear shiny.
Right.
In some of the close-up pictures, it almost looks like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a possibility too. It could be some kind of mineral found up there that's shiny, like has a physical appearance like graphite here has.
Right. I think that's mostly just again that might be just wishful thinking,
Right.
And yeah. I kind of want that to be true, but when I look at the pictures closer, I kind of think that it's not.
Right.
Astronauts seeing aliens. Have you heard the any of the interviews with some of the astronauts that claim to have seen aliens?
No, actually I haven't.
There's a documentary. I don't remember what it's called, but I found it on YouTube. Obviously, if you just look for go to YouTube and search for astronauts, aliens, any combination of those two, really, it'll bring up this YouTube, and there's actually a clip of Buzz Aldrin, and he's talking about when they were coming back. Either they were coming back or they were going up. I don't remember now, but they spotted something out of the window. It was kind of flanking them, and they didn't want to cause too much of a panic, so they just kind of asked where the propulsion rocket that kind of detaches once they get up into space.
Yeah.
They were asking where that was in relation to them to kind of make sure that wasn't it. And when they gave them the location of it, it definitely wasn't where they were seeing the thing. And they didn't want to freak anybody out, so they didn't actually speak about it anymore over the radio there. And I guess they saved it for debriefing once they got back to Earth. But in this documentary, Buzz Aldrin is basically talking about how they saw something they couldn't explain, basically flanking their shuttle.
I didn't see that, so I just got a real quick question. Did you actually see Buzz Aldrin, or was it just?
It was Buzz Aldrin sitting there talking about it. He was explaining how they didn't want to cause a panic, so they only asked where this detached piece was. And, he said that after they found out where it was, and it was kind of tense, and they were looking at it and trying to figure out what it was, and eventually they decided, well, we'll let it go, and we're not going to talk about it until we get back to Earth.
Right.
There's actually a couple different interviews where he talks about it.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I'll have to look that one up. I was just asking that because there's a lot of stuff on YouTube. Basically, if I ever see anything on YouTube that says 100% genuine or not fake or 100% real, I'm just going to go ahead and assume it's fake.
Right. Yeah. It's always better if you can get the actual person talking about it.
Yeah.
There's a site, though, that I found. It's just this page. It's got all these different quotes from different astronauts and things talking about things they've seen in space. And there's even one with Neil Armstrong where he's where he said he's in space and he says these babies are huge, they're enormous, and talking about a spacecraft out the window. I don't know if that's true though, because this is all it's text on a page, but definitely I think astronauts have seen stuff, but I think most of the time they're told to keep quiet about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody were to see something like that, I would say it'd probably be an astronaut, somebody who's actually going into space. I mean, that kind of relates back to the Air Force pilots back in the 40s who would see Foo Fighters, is what they called them.
Right.
I mean, I'd say that if you're up in the air or up out in space, you're 100% more likely to see something than if you're on the ground.
Do you think that maybe NASA tries to
Oh yeah.
silence them?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's comes with any government agency. I mean, huge with the NSA right now is in the news. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think with any government agency, I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that if we've ever made alien contact, if the government has, that they would cover it up because it would be too much. I mean, if you think of all the religious affiliations in the world that believe that there can only be one God that made one man,
Right.
how it would shatter the whole belief system. And what kind of turmoil that would make, especially, in that whole volatile region there in the Middle East.
Right, yeah.
That would cause huge problems over there.
Well, that answers my next question, because I was going to ask you why you think they try to cover something like that up.
Yeah,
But that's a really good reason.
I even think that honestly, if NASA saw, oh no, here's this huge asteroid that's coming to hit Earth, I don't think they'd tell anybody. I really don't. Unless somebody came out and leaked it, I would hope that there'd be somebody there that would have enough sense of mind to say, we gotta tell somebody.
Well, I mean, what if there was nothing they could do about it, though? I mean, would it be a good idea to cause a panic, or just let people go on?
I think that the government, in their own mind, rather than let people know, would just decide, just let it happen. They don't have to just, let them go about it.
Right.
About their daily lives and not have to worry about it. Because all it's going to do is cause pain and suffering, by those people who are going to freak out and murder and rape and kill because it's their last days and they're freaking out. I have a pretty healthy distrust of our government, the U.S. government or the world governments, especially the major ones that have the capabilities to sense something like this coming. That I just don't think that they would tell us.
Right, I agree. I think maybe sometime in the future we ought to do just an in general government conspiracy show.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot we could go off on that one.
I mean, this show has taken us right up almost to an hour just doing this. Just think of how long we could go with a government conspiracy show. We'd probably have to split that into 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, if we did that, I'm going to have to get a hold of my Uncle Paul and see what that site was, because I could get on there, I'll send you a link, and I could get on there and just show you just all these different government conspiracies. I mean,
right.
I mean, it's a thread kind of thing like Reddit, only, I mean, it's just conspiracy. I mean, if you ever go into, Reddit's subreddit, or Reddit subreddit, it's called Conspiracy. It's kind of similar to that, only more extreme. I mean, if any of you out there actually have been on to conspiracy, I mean, you already know how it can be kind of out there. I mean, there's some good debates on there too. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a good subreddit to check out, but I mean, some of the stuff there is kind of off the wall. I mean, I'm pretty conservative with my thoughts about a bunch of conspiracies. I don't think 9/11 was an inside job. I don't, JFK, that one's actually, I think, pretty interesting. There could be a lot of different things there, but I mean, there's, a lot of the huge government conspiracies that people think out there, I think it's just people kind of grasping at a reason to not trust their government.
Sure. I think with most of that stuff, with pretty much most anything, everything paranormal and, the government conspiracies and pretty much anything, I always put it like I'm an open-minded skeptic. I'd like to believe, but I'm really going to have some proof before I do.
There's a whole lot I could get into with some of these conspiracies and why I don't believe in them, because pretty much any conspiracy that, I devote some of my time to, I really look into and, research, and usually 9 times out of 10, you can tell that it's really just something, cooked up in people's minds.
Right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off because we've gone over an hour now. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll let you go now, and I'll get with you shortly on the next episode.
All right.
All right. I'll talk to you later then.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. You may have noticed this episode was a little bit longer than all of the other ones so far. And what happened was Tyler and I both discovered that we run off on tangents together. So what happened was we would start in one place and end up in another place, and we had to go back on track, and I actually did a fair bit of editing. The original recording was over an hour long. So there's a lot of good stuff that got cut out, and if you're interested in seeing that, let me know and I'll throw something together, kind of like a deleted scenes for you. If you'd like to submit an experience, if you have a show idea, if you have questions or comments, or you'd like to be part of the show in any way, go ahead and go to wotb.blogspot.com. On the left-hand side of the page, you're going to see links for a Facebook page. Feel free to like that. There's also 2 links to contact us. One is for submitting experiences, and one is just everything else in general. There's also a Skype line. You can go ahead and leave me a Skype voicemail. There's also a Google Voice line. You can go ahead and leave me a voicemail there. There's also a good old-fashioned phone number that redirects to my Google Voice line, so you can leave a voicemail that way, or you can go ahead and text. However, the best way to stay updated is to like the Facebook page or bookmark the blog page. Now, since Halloween is just passed, I've had a great idea for next year's Halloween show, and there will be a next year's Halloween show. Now, I'm not ready to disclose that idea to you just yet, but know this, that it's going to be big, and it's going to take a full year's worth of planning, so I'm already working on it. However, I do have some good stuff coming up very soon. The next episode, Tyler and I will be taking on government conspiracies, probably of all kinds, and somewhere in the near future, we'll be tackling local legends. So if you have anything related to those subjects, please feel free to drop us a line and let us know. Any help is appreciated, and we always value your participation. So until next time, guys, keep your eyes and your minds open, or you just might miss what's out there.